Passage, a short story contribution for Ethology Light by Anita Kovacevic, inspired by a passage in Zagreb, Croatia's capital. Part 3. One Sunday at Mass, among all the voices singing their hymns, James recognized her enchanting voice. Church was the only place Ophelia was allowed to attend regularly without her husband. As she entered the church, veiled to cover her scars, being called a lady didn't change the fact that she was sold into marriage to a money-packed brute, heavy-fisted and light on liquor. Her gentle song made James breathe hard, swallowing the urge to go up to her and help. At the end of service, his gaze followed her silhouette as she moved towards the exit. Her unsteady walk reminded him of his mother's, and he could imagine the horrors Ophelia had suffered during the previous week. Ophelia stumbled over the hem of her dress, and James rushed to hold her before she fell. As he touched her arm, she released a painful cry. Her blue eyes washed over his face, and he felt both blessed and cursed. She averted her gaze as fast as a hunted doe, and vanished among the crowd. But James's warm brown eyes and eager face started haunting her songs, bringing with them the yearning for rescue and love. Yes, these are the stories stones know. You would be shocked and amazed at what you could hear, if only you could listen. And I listened. As time progressed and James found his heart wandering more and more toward Ophelia, torn to help her, he knew he needed counsel. He was apprehensive to talk to the bishop, since Ophelia was a married woman. The bishop knew him only too well, and would easily guess that James's desire to help Ophelia was not without romantic notions. The bishop was a kind man, but old and burdened by strict regulations. On one of his regular visits to his mother, James decided to ask for his mother's advice. As he retold the whole story to her in the seclusion of the monastery garden, she became very quiet. Having been a woman of those times, married to a rich and abusive lord herself, she knew very well, much better than young James, the dangers lurking in every crevice of such an unhappy home. Tears trailed the creases of her wrinkled face as she took her son's hands and gripped them tightly. James kept on whispering. I would go to her father, but he's a drunken monster who cares nothing of others. I cannot go to the bishop. Ophelia is married, and you know the church never meddles in marital affairs, unless the lady pleads sanctuary, and Ophelia, I cannot even send her a note to do so without risking her life. I must do something, he implored. His mother's fervent gaze pierced his eyes with decisiveness. Yes, you must. We must take a different route. Use the bishop's help, but mother... Just use a different approach, she urged on. Tell the bishop you need a passage. Tell him Bacchus's wall prevents you from getting from one place of the city to another, so you cannot get to his lords in time to provide your services. This was actually true in part. James did manage to get everywhere, but he was also forced to turn down several clients or delay them due to inefficient routes, which did not make the bishop too pleased. Have the passage built in honor of a patron saint, she suggested. That will go well by the bishop, mark my words. You will see. The passage will change things. Bacchus won't be able to hide. His wall needs to come down. The bishop readily agreed to the plan, as the new passage would also shorten his morning walks, and he could come by James's house more easily. He was getting old, but he loved walking round town and visiting his protégé. Since the passage would be named after a saint, he even offered for the church to pay for building material. This is how I knew of all this. I was going to be built from stones gathered from all over the city by poor folk, in exchange for a proper meal. There were so many people with so much to say. People talk, stones listen. So I listened. To be continued.